Where were you on Thursday, February 20th at 12:49 in the afternoon? I want you to really sit back and I want you to really think about this for a moment because something big happened in the pantheon of St. Louis City history, as short as it is, at this particular timestamp. And that happening came in the form of
Tom Bogart's gonna ruin my day.
Yes, Cavincio, ruining our day as he always does, announcing that Philadelphia Union have agreed to a deal in principle to acquire Indiana Vassilev in a trade from St. Louis. Vassilev, who just turned 24, made his U.S. men's national team debut last month. Deal is in GAM, not cash, I'm told, and the deal is agreed but not done yet. So the Indiana Vassilev era is over in St. Louis, and it took a lot of you by shock. It took me by shock because of where his trajectory appeared to be going this year, because of that U.S. men's national team career, because of, his popularity among the fan base. He's a very expressive guy. He is a very popular guy. And because of just the timing of the season coming right around the corner. I mean, at the time that Bogart dropped this bomb on us, we were 2 days away from opening up the season against Colorado Rapids. So everything about this seemed to take people by surprise. But maybe it shouldn't. And I'll explain why you should not have been surprised why Indiana Vassilev is moving on, especially to Philadelphia of all clubs, how this could affect the roster going forward, how this could affect Olaf Melberg's shaping of the club going forward, and why it was still stupid to protect Indiana Vassilev over Jose Kojima. Now, this is the last time I'm going to say Kojima's name for a little while. If you want to take any guesses on the timestamp as to when I'll mention his name again, leave a comment below with your timestamp and let me know if you were actually right or wrong. I want to see some hands and I want to see some truth here. But the news that Vassilev being traded to Philadelphia today was quite frankly enough to send any man to their local bar or tavern to grab a drink. Maybe it sent you to my new partner, Pat Connolly Tavern, located at Tam and Oakland in beautiful Dogtown, an institution since 1942 in St. Louis. And it's a great place to watch soccer. It's a great place to grab a burger or some fried chicken, grab a bite to eat, and of course, a icy cold beverage to wash down your tears over, including tears over the sale of Indiana Vassilev. And again, if you go to Pat Connolly Tavern, please tell them that I sent you. So this video is going to be a bit of a stream of consciousness for me here a little bit as I kind of sort out, what's going on here and why this sale is being done in the first place. Now, Vassilev appeared to take some big steps forward, getting selected for Mauricio Pochettino's U.S. men's national team, apparently, doing pretty well for himself in the games that he played there. And it appeared that he was on the path to getting some more playing time. Now, remember last year, Vassilev was kind of a, jack of all trades. In fact, actually, really the past 2 years, he's been the type of guy that, if Jabulo Blom gets injured at the 6, you plug in Vassilev as a center mid. He plays as a right winger. Oftentimes he plays as a 10 at times. He's a versatile player that did add value in that regard. However, I will say that Vassilev, if he seemed like an unexceptional player to you, the analytics do back that up. And I'm going to pull up those analytics for you right here. So G plus is the stat that Chat City Tactics uses here. G plus is goals added. It's basically an estimation of the value that a player adds or detracts from during his time on the field. And you're seeing on 2024, he was just in the 11th percentile in the entire MLS in all categories, and every category was a negative. He was not a great dribbler. He was not a great passer, which is kind of a problem when you're playing the type of game that he plays, as a winger or a 10. He's also not the best shooter. He doesn't score a lot of goals. He doesn't generate a lot of assists. He tends to draw, maybe, more fouls than we would like. He's not, I wouldn't exactly call him a stonewall on defense. So he was a jack of all trades, and he was average at all trades, or he maybe even slightly worse in the last year. So the analysts kind of say that maybe Indiana Vassilev was not the player that maybe we all kind of hold him up to be. yes, he has shown big moments in his time in St. Louis, and yes, he was a very popular player. I mean, everyone can think about the mustache here. And so, in terms of player, my first question here is, where's he going to play in St. Louis? And the answer to that might be pretty telling in the preseason when you saw Vassilev playing up, towards as almost like an attacking 10 or an attacking winger. You did not see him play wing back. And that seems to be a position of need right now for St. Louis, and a position that I think a lot of people might have expected Vassilev to maybe pivot to in Olaf Melberg's three in the back system. I think it's a position that we'll see a lot of Rasmus Alm at. We might see Celio Pompeu at. But Vassilev, we didn't see him there in preseason. Did he not want to play wingback? And if he didn't want to play wingback, that leaves him as an attacking 10 or attacking forward. And in this system, you're talking about getting playing time when you have the likes of Rasmus Alm, you have the likes of Marcel Hartl, Cedric Toyshirt, Tomas Ostrak, others on the team. It felt like that Vassilev did not exactly have a permanent spot in the starting lineup for St. Louis City. And so maybe it's kind of, you're kind of wondering that, already, but then Taylor Twellman goes on the Hell site to let us all know that Indiana Vassilev apparently didn't want to be in St. Louis. He was telling his players that he didn't want to be in St. Louis. Now, this might take people by surprise because, again, Indy's a very outgoing personality. He's a jokester. He's very popular for St. Louis City's social media. On the surface, it would appear that Indiana Vassilev was not dissatisfied with being in St. Louis, but if we look a little deeper, I think we can point to what made Indiana dissatisfied and maybe how he was hiding it a little bit on us this whole time. I want to go back to the fact that he's getting traded to Philadelphia Union. This is no coincidence. This is no accident. This isn't just because this is where St. Louis sends all of its malcontent attacking players. I mean, AZ went to Columbus, but Sam Adeniran went to Philadelphia last year. But you remember, Sam Adeniran didn't have to play under Bradley Carnell in Philadelphia. Indiana Vassilev will. And that's key because I think there is strong evidence that shows that Indiana Vassilev is a Bradley Carnell guy. And I'm going to show you some of that evidence right here and right now. This is from a press conference after the San Jose home game in July. This was, I believe, the first home game in John Hackworth's tenure as interim head coach. And Hackworth himself, I think, might play a role in Indiana leaving here. And I'll explain that in just a bit. But as I'm playing this first clip here of Indiana Vassilev after he's being asked about, his reaction to the Bradley Carnell sacking, look at his eyes and look at his body language, and especially look at it as he's gathering his thoughts here.
A lot of people navigate that differently. Yeah. For me individually, it's been tough. I think that's okay for me to say. That's the first time I've lost a coach midway through a season. For me, it's been difficult. But at the end of the day, it's part of the job. And situations like this do happen, and you kind of have to compartmentalize and move on to the next game.
By the way, courtesy to KMOX Sports on this video. By the way, I'll have a link for the full press conference in the description below so you can check it out. You can just tell he's frustrated. You can tell he's disappointed. And then he just kind of lets it out about how he felt about Carnell.
I think Brad was a fantastic coach for this club. I think he set so many records for us. And I think at a certain stage, players have to respond and back their coach up. And sadly, I feel like, that came a little bit too late for us. But that's genuinely how I feel. That's how I feel. I feel like in a lot of these games, under him, we played quite well. And there are these specific moments where we should have stepped up as a group, as a collective. And I think, for me personally, I feel like we failed him a little bit.
We failed him. That is him taking ownership of Bradley Carnell's sacking. And now you could look at as a noble gesture. I mean, it's something that I think a lot of players would say after a coach is sacked. But Indiana is literally falling on the sword for Bradley Carnell here. Like it's his duty. Like, again, the body language, the tone is pretty evident there. And he didn't have to do this at all, but he felt compelled to do it. And then he takes it another step further later on.
Of course, I feel a little bit of guilt, 100%. Like I said, there is only so much a coach and his coaching staff can do to prepare the players. And I already alluded to it. I feel like in certain moments we weren't good enough. That's all I can say. That's how I feel personally. That's obviously my opinion. You guys can ask anybody else the same question. Maybe they have different answers, but that's how I feel. Maybe some share the same sentiment as I do. Maybe others don't. But for me, that's definitely a motivating point for me.
It was brought up by a reporter that Indiana Vassilev played for John Hackworth before during his youth career. He's very familiar with John Hackworth. And remember, John Hackworth was a finalist for the city coaching job, but he didn't get it. But at the time, Indiana seemed pretty satisfied that Hackworth was at least the interim manager at the time.
I can give everything for him. So that made it easier for me to play for him because I've known him and we have that not camaraderie. I don't know what word I'm trying to find, but I have so much respect for him that it made it easier for me that he was kind of the one that succeeded at the moment, Brad. Like I said, I've known him for a long time. I have nothing but huge respect for him. So anytime that he plays me, I will, I'll give my everything for him.
So yes, you can hear that deep admiration and respect for Hackworth. And he lets his emotions come out even more when talking about the Carnell situation. So yes, you can clearly hear that deep admiration and respect for Hackworth. But again, Hackworth did not get the head coaching job at the end of the year. So, we're talking about a guy that has lost not one but two coaches that he liked in a very short time frame here. So that could make someone pretty bitter here. I'm going to go back to the press conference here when he's asked about what motivates him going forward. And again, the body language and the tone tells as much of the story as his words.
I had no idea when I walked in on Monday, so it was a little bit of a surprise to me because I had no idea when I walked in on Monday. So yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to fight these emotions. I'm a very emotional guy. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So yeah, it's tough. I don't know how else to explain it to you guys. I'm being completely transparent with you. It's tough. And you just have to. It's part of the job. It happens sometimes. You just got to compartmentalize. You talk to people close to you. You try and find motivation in others. You just got to move on.
And finally, watch this last clip here and tell me that this isn't a guy who looks just completely done.
Oof. Everybody has their own motivation. Mine's different from, let's say, Edu's, and Edu's is different from Tim's, and Tim's is different from Tots. So everybody finds a way to motivate themselves. And I guess with heightened emotions, it makes it easier, I guess, when the emotions are more heightened, easier for some. And yeah, I guess maybe that's what it looked like. That's what it seemed. So yeah, I guess heightened emotions, I would say. But everybody has their own way to motivate themselves. He's in a spot now where it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for him. It's going to be tough for us. But he has the respect of everyone. So that's a very good starting point. And he's a damn good coach. I know that from experience.
He praises Hackworth, but his eyes are wandering around. He leans back. His shoulders are slouched. And he has just the classic look of someone that is just almost clinically depressed. It's a very lifeless tone from him. It's a very defeated tone from him. And it doesn't look like the tone and the body language of someone that is just happy to be in St. Louis. Again, I think he hid this pretty well from people and from fans, especially here, just because of his popularity and his willingness to chip in when possible. But I really do feel, and especially after watching that press conference and based on other things I've heard, that Indiana Vassilev was not just upset about Carnell leaving, but he was also upset that Hackworth didn't get the job. Flash forward to preseason this year. Vassilev gets the call up to the U.S. men's national team, impresses there. He's got a chip on his shoulder, but he's not looking at the prospect of starting minutes here in St. Louis. And also, you have to wonder if maybe he and Mellberg just didn't jive very well. Again, we didn't see Vassilev play in that wingback spot, a spot that I think a lot of people thought he might have been ideal for. Maybe Vassilev just sees himself as an attacking winger or as a 10, and that's where he wants to play. That spot is not necessarily there for him in St. Louis. So, when he's talking to his teammates about not wanting to be here and being unsatisfied, that's kind of telling right there. I think he's someone that hid his feelings pretty well, about how he felt in St. Louis. And it's also, I think, something that St. Louis City themselves hid pretty well. Like, the PR on this team is very solid. Like, you don't, whenever these things like that kind of come out, and you hear about locker room turmoil like we did with Sam Adeniran last year, it kind of takes us by surprise because you just don't necessarily see that coming from the club. Now, the Indiana Vassilev news was big news in the Soccer Zombie Discord. I highly recommend you join and check that out just for good conversation and also really kind of coping with the surprise news of today. But Ben Gottlieb, you may know him as Gummy Box, although don't call him Gummy Blocks, but it's him. We were talking on Discord today, and I'll pop up his comments right here, that after the Leafs Cup break, Vassilev looked kind of off when celebrating with teammates as a sub. Now, again, the Leafs Cup, this is right after when Carnell was sacked. So this was, Vassilev, it looked like from the press conference, looked like he was pretty raw, but then, Ben even noticed that he didn't seem very happy to be there. I think Vassilev is a professional. He's already played abroad. He, was in Aston Villa. This is a guy that, at 24 years old, this is someone that, already is a professional. He's been at this for a few years. And, I don't think he's someone that is necessarily going to be a locker room cancer. He's not going to make a big deal about being dissatisfied. But eventually, I mean, just like with anyone, myself included, you can internalize and internalize and internalize for so long until you eventually just kind of have to let it out. And I wonder if Indy, kind of just let it out. Maybe something happened with him and Mellberg to where that this kind of popped up here. So regardless, Indiana Vassilev, no longer a member of St. Louis City. He is going off to Philadelphia Union to rejoin Bradley Carnell. I don't think that's an accident at all. I think Indy indicated that he may have wanted to play for Bradley. Bradley might have been very keen on bringing him in. One thing that Bogert noted is that Vassilev plays well in a high-pressing system, and Bradley Carnell, it looks like he is going to bring back that energy drink, high-pressing soccer that St. Louis played in 2023. And so he's going to want someone that he knows that can, kind of carry out his directive and his mission per se. So when, Vassilev made it known that he wanted to leave, I'm sure Bradley Carnell caught wind of it, and now he's bringing him in for some GAM. I've heard some numbers as to what that GAM could be. It is apparently going to be a lot. Will we ever know what that GAM is? We may not, because MLS clubs tend to be kind of secretive about that sort of thing. But it does, if it's a big GAM figure, and if it's the numbers that I've been kind of hearing, and because I am a glorified podcaster, I have the worst luck in the world, and probably right when I was saying that, Tom Bogert clarified that St. Louis will be receiving $1 million in Garber bucks, along with the potential $200,000 more in bonuses. So everything I'm saying now about soothing the loss of this next topic, I feel fairly soothed, but as you'll see, it still rankles me. It soothes the fact that we protected Indiana Vassilev over Jose Kojima. Take a note of the timestamp. I waited this long to mention Jose Kojima again. I'm proud, actually. I'm honestly very proud because, as you may know, I was very upset over the Jose Kojima situation. I'm still not over it. Yeah, that was from the last video that I did on the Jose Kojima situation. But I still thought that at the time, Indiana Vassilev should not have been protected over Jose Kojima because I thought Kojima was going to get interest from somewhere. He's shown that he could play MLS minutes. He's got a reputation already that he works very hard. He's very young at the age of 22, I believe. He's just got a high projection to him, and he's on a very cheap entry-level contract that a team was going to be very interested in. And now Jose Kojima, to be fair, and Chris Gebhardt, I hear you. I hear you. I saw your blue sky skeet earlier. I hear you that we should be happy that Jose Kojima is going to DC because it is very clear based on how they've used him in the preseason that Kojima is going to be like their starting 10. He's going to get starting minutes. He's going to play a lot. Now, DC may not be very good this year, but it is clear that they value Jose Kojima. They valued him enough to pay $400,000 in GAM for him, after all. But it is sad that we couldn't find a spot for Kojima here in St. Louis, especially seeing as we have depth issues at the 6. I'm sure that Kojima would have been willing to step in there, although he's told me personally he doesn't consider himself a good defender, but I mean, in a pinch, I think he'd do it. Right wing back, I think that's a position that Kojima could have tried. He would have been happy to try it. Kojima told me personally when me and him swapped jerseys, when I gave him my Soccer Zombie jersey and he signed a Sarasota Paradise kit for me, that he just wants to play. Like he just, he's willing to try anything. He just wants to get minutes and he wants to get time. So with hindsight being what it is, with Vassilev being gone, Vassilev going out would have opened, in theory, some more playing time for Kojima. I think Kojima may have been the de facto backup right wing back to Toland, although that depends on how they utilize Rasmus Alm, whether they play him still at as an attacker or as a wing back. But again, hindsight is what it is. I would have protected Kojima. I would have exposed Vassilev, and we'll never know if that was truly the right move or not. All we can do is sit here and speculate. Now, you may have noticed that I have a brand new camera. I'm in 1080p, 60 frames per second now, so it looks nice and fancy. And I was hoping to debut this camera to announce, to discuss the Alfredo Morales signing, which at the time of this has not yet happened. I was hoping for a happier topic, quite frankly, but regardless, I can't get everything that I want, just like I can't have Jose Kojima on my St. Louis City team again. But regardless, Alfredo Morales, I was going to do a more in-depth video on him when they signed him. He hasn't signed yet. 34-year-old, has been around the block. Of course, he's German. So, again, we talked about Lutz having a type. I mean, Alfredo Morales, he is German, but he's also American. His father is Peruvian by descent. So he's, got an interesting blend there. Morales was born in Berlin. His father was in the military, so I would presume that his father was stationed in Berlin, and that's how he got German nationality as well as American. But he's a guy that's been around the block. Came up through Hertha Berlin's academy, played in Germany for a while, then came over to the States in the 2020s, played for New York City FC, played for a little bit for San Jose last year. I think he had some injury issues, though. But, looking at Morales' card here, we can see that he's not an exceptional player per se, but one thing that I think that he will add is a bit of stability in our center mid, which is especially at the 6th spot, which is kind of lacking at the moment. He looked good in his trial appearances that I could see from his Coachella games. He is, again, he's 34 years old. He's a veteran. He may not have the wheels to, start for the full season, but as someone that could, come off the bench, play valuable minutes, step in a pinch. He's a leader, with experience at 34 years of age. And from what I could tell, even though the analytics don't really kind of convey that too well, he would bring a bit of teeth, as a defensive-minded six. But he also is, as you can see from his 2024 stats, he actually had positive goals added for his dribbling and his passing. So he is someone that, if you're talking about having more ball progression up the middle, someone that could, maybe help out St. Louis there. But again, the numbers were kind of limited on these analytics here because Morales only got into just a handful of games. When he played, he looked fine. Again, not a sexy start or anything like that, but I think as a depth piece, he's someone that St. Louis needs at the moment. But what do you think about Indiana Vassilev? Have I kind of conveyed it to you that maybe it was time for Indy to leave? Do you have anything to say about how much of a surprise this was? Because again, the wool was kind of pulled over our eyes, as a fan base about Vasilev's feelings about St. Louis and about Carnell and, what have you. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. And make sure to like and subscribe for more St. Louis City SC content this year. Again, I'm getting stuck in on City this year, and I hope you join me for the ride. I'll have the first regular season power rankings coming out hopefully on Sunday. And of course, I want to thank all of my zombie ultras here as well, listed right here on the screen, all 8 of you. Thank you so much for your support of this channel. Of course, everyone that was a part of my 99-cent supporters section, whether it's recently or from the beginning, you guys really helped this channel out. Everything goes back into this channel. For instance, this brand new camera here that I have, all that goes into this. My old camera was kind of giving up the ghost a little bit per se. So it was time for a change, and you've helped with that. So this is your soccer zombie, Tom Franklin. And if you want to see how the power rankings for this season will work, you can check out the power rankings that I did right up here, right after the New York City FC Coachella game. And, it was the first time around. I think I got some things to improve on it, but you can kind of get an idea of how it'll work right up here.